Greetings, my name is Dr. Eric Landrum from the Department of Psychology here at Boise State University, and you're watching a brief video about APA format for Microsoft Word, creating a table. I'm actually creating this video in response to my research method students who, after collecting data for the semester on survey items, have to report in Table 1 essentially the outcomes that happened, the descriptive outcomes from that study. And what I'm going to be creating here for you today is a 3-column table that's going to include columns for the items, the means, and the standard deviations. And so I'm going to be showing you the basics of how to create this table, but note that the order that I show them in isn't necessarily the order that you have to do them in. So different people would do this different ways, but the overarching goal is to get a perfectly formatted table in APA format. So I'm going to go ahead and scroll down from the opening screen that you're seeing here. And I'm looking at page 2, and I'm just going to get going. And again, you're going to have to be patient with me because there's a bunch of things that I'll have to go back and do over time. And again, the order may not always really matter, just that they all have to be done before your table is complete. So I'm going to have a table 1 labeled survey responses for omnibus survey items. I'm going to try to make the table description the table title as descriptive as possible. We're going to go back and put that in italics. So I'm thinking ahead, and it's okay if you don't think about this ahead perfectly, but I have 5 items I want to present, and I know I'm going to have 3 columns. An item in the first column, then a column for mean, and a column for standard deviation. So I'm going to insert a table. There's a couple different ways to do this, and so you can either use this little click on that. You can get the shortcut here, and I can get my 5 rows and 3s like that. But let's say that you don't have one that'll fit in this grid for some reason. This is a 10 by 8, I guess. You can always also use just this right here, and you can actually then just dictate the actual number. But for our purposes, I need a table with 5 rows and 3 columns. So I can just do that right here. And you can kind of see it gives me a preview on the screen, and that's going to be good. Now again, remember that there's lots of things to do, but there are different orders that you can do them in. So this first column is going to be called item, and then I'm going to have my means here and my standard deviations here. Within each of these, I'm going to center those. These 2 I want to be italicized because they are statistical terms. Oh, and look what happened. And so I actually miscounted. Well, this is actually a great example. I have one header column that tells me what each of the columns is in, but I actually have 5 survey items. But notice I've only got 4 more blank lines. I can come down to this very last square here, or cell in the matrix, hit the tab key, and look what it did. It added that for us. Now I'm going to have means and standard deviations always reported to 2 digits using our normal regular rounding rules, but the columns don't have to be this wide. And so just kind of for aesthetic purposes, I'm going to kind of narrow that down a bit. And so you can see here's my cursor, and I wait until it kind of turns into that double-sided arrow, click and hold, and then just drag. And I'm going to eyeball this, which should be just fine. Okay. Oh, but by the way, again, we're so far from being done here. Eventually, this table is only going to have 3 horizontal lines and no vertical lines. Again, we can do this all sorts of different ways. So I'm going to start typing my survey items. And remember for this assignment that every item that you asked in your survey needs to be in table 1. That's for my research method students watching this video. Even if you didn't analyze some of the items, every item needs to be here. So I believe that my institution provides adequate resources to support teaching. All right, so I'm going to show you one thing right now that I don't care for. It's spaced way far too right. I don't need all that empty space. And you can see this little icon here. It's done some autocorrect. I want to turn that off. So I'm going to hover, and I'm going to click. I'm going to say stop automatically creating numbered lists. Now 2, 3, 4, and 5, it won't do that. By the way, it's double spaced, and that's exactly how it should be. This page is exactly double spaced throughout, 1-inch margins on all 4 sides. So I'm going to go ahead and type in the rest of the text of my items. And I'm sorry that this isn't very interesting to watch me type, or maybe it's listen and watch me type. Flexible, physical. Oh, good. It did auto. I'll take that autocorrect when it gets it right. Physical spaces for teaching and learning. I'm also going to have a note at the bottom of this table. So again, lots of nuances, lots of details. I believe that my institution adequate. So you're going to have to do this eventually anyway. Mechanisms for evaluating teaching. But it'll be your survey items from the project that you did. Oh, that looks like there's probably an extra space in there. Which word will help me take out? Just a couple more. Sorry about this. It's kind of boring. I believe that my institution, but at least this way I can show you from scratch exactly all the steps, provides adequate support. I'm sorry, adequate, you really got to read this thing, huh? Adequate assessment. Something wrong there. /support. Then there's a fifth item. So these first four items, and you're going to see this here in a minute, are all were answered by participants on a 1 equals strongly disagree to 5 equals strongly disagree scale. But there was one item here that wasn't measured on that, and it's called academic status. And we'll get to the details of all that in a minute. Now I'm going to go ahead and actually enter the means and standard deviations, and that would have come from my SPSS printout, or however that you determine that. So on that scale of 1 to 5, the mean for this first item was at 3.60, and the standard deviation was a 1.14. I'm just going to enter it first, and then I'll clean it up. A 3.22, and then it's a 1.23 is the standard deviation. For number 3, the 3.08 and 1.18. And item number 4, 3.29, and the standard deviation is 1.05. And just to make it look a little bit more aesthetically pleasing, I'm going to go ahead and center those. Okay. Bunch of things to do. So I need to have my note that explains all the scales for all 5 items. The first 4 items were all measured on the same scale. That'll be a pretty easy sentence. But this academic status, that's not an interval ratio variable. Actually, the options for that, it's actually a dichotomous variable. It's either going to be the respondent replied tenure track or non-tenure track. And so for nominal scale variables, we do not report the mean, even though SPSS will give it to us. Worth repeating again. For nominal scale variables, we do not report a mean. It doesn't make any sense. The nominal scale values are just helping us keep track of categories and classifications. The numbers themselves do not inherently mean anything. Anyway, all right. So I'm going to go ahead and take care of the lines first. You can see this table has a bunch of vertical lines and horizontal lines. By the time it's properly formatted, it should only have 3 vertical lines. So here I'm going to select the table where everything's highlighted now. And notice my Table Tools tab comes up here. I've got 2 tabs, Design and Layout, and I want to stay here with Design. And I want to find borders. And by the way, this may not look exactly the same if you're using an older version of Microsoft Word. Your older version will still do it, but the layout of the menus may not look exactly the same. I'm going to click on Border, and I want No Border. So now it's done it. And if I look at it, it's all floating in air. The table's still there, but I really can't see where the lines are. Because I need to draw back in 3 horizontal lines. So something I need to do is turn on what's called grid lines. And so I'm still in the table. I can actually highlight the entire table again by checking on the little plus sign in the box there. And now I'm going to up the Table Tools, not Design, but Layout. And you can see there's a tab way over here where I'm pointing that says View Grid Lines. So I'm going to click on that. And then if I come in and click inside my box, you can see these dotted lines. These dotted lines will not print. They are grid lines, but they will show you where the table is in space. Because if you want to print this, in fact, I can show you. If you want to print this, File and Print, look at the print preview right here. No lines. Okay, but we're going to get out of that because we're not ready. We're not finished yet. So I've got my table here, and now I want to go back and draw 3 lines. There's a bunch of ways to do this, and you may have a better way, and that's cool. I'm going to show you the way I do it. Not that it's right or wrong, but it's just the way I know it works for me. So I'm going back out, clicking on Design under the Table Tools, and now I'm going to click on Border Painter. And see how my cursor now turned into a paintbrush. And I'm going to come over here. I need a line right here. So I'm going to click and drag and let go. And look at the line appears. I'm going to click and drag and let go. I'm going to do the same thing up top here. I'm going to click and drag and then let go. See how my cursor is still a paintbrush? I need to toggle that back to the regular I-bar. So I'm just going to come up here, click on that again, and now it's back to the I-bar. That is the perfect formatting with regards to lines in an APA format table. There's 2 at the top, 1 at the bottom. And if we want to kind of see that without the grid lines, that print preview is a great place to see that. So there you go. That's pretty right there. And so you got your 3 lines, 2 at the top, 1 at the bottom. And then we're almost home. Now we need to do a table note. If you just left the table like this, the reader wouldn't have any idea what a 3.60 means for item 1 or a 3.29 for item 4. There's not enough context there for the reader to know what that number means. So we need to add the context. We add that in the bottom, right smack under, called notes with a period after it. And I'm going to say something like this. Items 1 to 4 were measured on a Likert type agreement scale from the low end, 1 equals strongly disagree, to 5, which equaled a strongly agree. A couple things I need to do here. So first off, notes is in italics. This is a complete sentence. It has a noun and a verb. It starts with a capital letter. It ends in a period. I've spelled Likert correctly. It's actually a Likert type. That's actually a person's name. The verbal descriptions of scale anchors must be italicized. So I need to come back and italicize strongly disagree and strongly agree. I don't italicize the equal sign. I don't italicize the number. I just italicize the verbal descriptor, 1 to 5. Notice also that I followed my rules for equal signs. Treat an equal sign like a word, so there's a space on both sides of it. So that's great that tells me the context of how to interpret these items. In fact, if the 3 is the midpoint, which is typically neutral, these answers are all above, neutral, towards agree. Okay, so that kind of gives me the snapshot, the descriptive statistics. But now for this last one. So this last item didn't fit on the agreement scale, and it's not even an interval ratio variable. So now I'm going to, in this table, in this format, I'm going to report the nominal outcomes in percentages in the note. So even though it's blank in the table, the note will tell me what happened with this data. And so again, I want to be grammatically correct. And so for item 5, let's see, 45.9% of respondents reported being, I'm just thinking about it grammatically here, tenured or tenure track faculty, and 54.1%, oops, I don't want a space there, 54.1% reported being non-tenure track faculty. That's odd to see those 2 hyphens. Don't worry about that. Your situation probably won't need that. So notice a couple things here. And so it was dichotomous. Either you checked a box, either your tenure track, or your non-tenure track. So there's no continuum. There's no higher score means more of something. It's not interval ratio scale data. So percentages are just fine. Actually, they're the appropriate choice. Notice also that I didn't italicize tenure track because it's not the verbal descriptor of a scale point. I don't have a 1 equals something or a 2 equals something. It's just describing the categories, and that's just fine. Okay, so I have to scroll a little bit. I guess if I made this view a little bit smaller, I could see the whole thing at one time. Let's see, I can zoom to 75% so we can get it all on the video screen. Oops, there you go. There's the front screen. And maybe it's best just to think of this how it really should look by doing the print preview. So the print preview is here. That's how a perfectly formatted table 1 is going to look. Now, of course, in your real completed manuscript, you'd have a page header up here in all caps, and you're going to have a page over here that's formatted properly, Times New Roman 12-point font. But that's what it's going to look like. Now, especially for my research method students, that sometimes because it's just the nature of the questions. I've actually seen it where not only can a table span more than one page, it just continues with a regular double spacing, but I've also seen it where the table note is actually longer than the actual table. That's okay. In certain situations, that's going to happen. And so really the goal here is that you want a complete chronicle of what happened, the items that you asked in your survey, the outcomes on that, either in terms of means and standard deviations or percentages, as well as the scale the items were measured on. Okay, that's it. There you have it. There is your APA formatted table.